Hello and welcome. In this series of videos we'll be talking about the administration basics of Google Apps. In this video we'll be talking about user administration basics. So what we're going to cover. We're going to cover logging into the admin console from a general web browser, a brief console orientation and tour to see what the icons do and the functions that are available to us, adding individual users, renaming users should their personal details change during the course of their employee with our company, inviting users, bulk user creation, normally done with a large group of users, perhaps say at the beginning of a deployment, how to suspend a user, how to delete a user, and then finally how to reinstate a user that has been previously deleted. So, accessing the Google Apps console. This can be done from a smartphone, a tablet, or from a PC. In this case, we're on a PC running a well-known browser. We're going to type in the following URL, admin.google.com. If you have multiple Google accounts when going through the training, you'll be selected, if you haven't already signed in this morning or whenever you're doing this training, to select the one that you require. So we want this one at the bottom. We're then presented with a screen to log on, provide our password for our Google Apps domain. And we've logged in. So generally on the first logon, you will not get all these icons. The icons on the admin console, if not the core icon supplied, are accessed via the More Controls section at the bottom of the screen. Clicking that will provide more. You can drag them down, hide them, or drag them into place. For completeness, I've dragged all the icons I could possibly get onto the main section. So now we've logged into our admin console, let's take a moment to have a quick view in means of orientation around the screen we'll be doing an awful lot of work in. In the top left hand side, just below the Google sign, you'll see next to the admin console link the ability to list all the icons in list form, whereas the initial view is pictorial with the icons. Now they're listed on the left hand side for ease of use. The user icon deals with the addition of users, renaming of users, deletion of users, and all things to do with managing users. Secondly, we have the company profile, which will deal with the personalization of your company information, how you want your Google Apps released to you, whether you want them on quick release, automatic release, manual release, how quickly changes Google make to those applications and that they then hit your enterprise or corporate. Also, it deals with the time zone and language. Next, we have billing, how you're charged for Google Apps, the apps, the domain that you're using, and the services. Reports, how you can track how your user community are using the apps and the facilities that you give them. The apps, the app marketplace. Here, inside this, you have core apps from Google Apps, and then additional apps, and also then apps you can leverage from the Google Marketplace. Device management. This deals primarily with Chromebooks and mobile devices. and how you can apply settings to these as a form of an MDM management type of administration. Also, we have security, primarily dealing with password strength, password monitoring, the ability to set up single sign-on or SSO. Support. If you're into trouble, you can go to a partner or to Google themselves. Migrations. How you migrate. Move from CMO, current mode of operation, to FMO, future mode of operation. Migrating data and users. Admin roles. Either leveraging existing setup admin roles or creating your own with more granular properties for your admins and security settings. Groups. Like users, adding groups, managing groups, adding users to groups, removing users from groups, setting up mailing lists. App Engine apps. This deals with your own custom written apps that you can implement into Google Apps. And then finally at the moment, domains. Add domains or domain aliases, dealing with MX records, CNAME records, DNS around the primary domain. So now we've had a quick orientation around the Google Apps console, and it was very brief, and we can cover that in a future installment. Let's get down to the task at hand, and that being user management. So clicking on the user icon, we'll be given the user management interface. As you can see, there are some users that I've set up from the Google training. On the left hand side, we have filters, and here we can display on the screen the active users, as we can see, active users, in this organizational unit. Users can only be a member of one organizational unit. These are in the Let the Wookiee Lose OU. And here's another user, the company CEO, in the Management OU. Notice she doesn't appear in the top OU. And we'll come on to OUs in a separate section. We can also click and see recently deleted users. We are given the option to select a user that we've deleted and undelete that user. Anyway, let's add a user. First, we can see we're given the name, the date they last signed in, their email usage, email address, and their status. Are they a general user or are they an administrator? We can add additional columns to display additional information, such as drive usage and total storage. Let's add a user manually. As you can see, moving the mouse to the down bottom right side of the screen, click on Add User. Let's add somebody. Bob Robertson. Bob Robertson at letthewookieelose.co.uk. As you can see, there's an automatic temporary password facility which will be assigned should you not want to set your own. Should you want to set your own for this particular user, following a password rollout that you're currently doing, you can do. You can click Set Password, type in the password you want. It'll give you an overview of the password strength. For example, if we type in password, that's very weak. Adding some numbers and some additional characters, we can increase it to a strong password. Capitals, lowercase, and numbers. Or we can auto-generate a password, which is the default option. The additional info is this. We can add a secondary email address for convenience. Very handy if you are merging one company with another. This company, for example, is called C&D Cakes. If that user had worked for D&C Cakes, a competitor that had been bought out by C&D Cakes, that secondary email address as well could be added in should they want to maintain contacts from that email address. And we'll talk about aliases later. Phone numbers and address. Next, then there are employee details. Employee type, let's call them a baker. And then the manager's email, their department, and a cost center. Click Create. Then you can either email that user to their address, their alternative email address, or you can print them out instructions and place it on their desk. You can also show that user's password. Now that password was automatically generated by Google Apps. Handy when logging on and testing the creation of a user. So we have our user, Bob Robertson. As you can see, we've got his email address, he's not logged in, he's newly created, and how much storage he has. By clicking on the focus to the right hand side of that user, we can reset their password, rename the user, delete the user, suspend the user, or email the user. Resetting the password is self-explanatory. If the user locks themselves out, can't remember their password, we can issue a password reset and a link and tell them over the phone via the help desk should that be required. If we're going to rename a user, for example Bob here, his Christian name may well be Robert. We click on Rename. And then remember to change the email address. Now, here's something to consider. If the user has been Bob Robertson for a period of time, then people internally and externally from the company may be used to that email address. What we could do is add an email alias for Bob or Robert so that people can still use the Bob Robertson email address, but as he's changed his name and for his own personal preference, the email alias can also be Robert Robertson, and that would be linked to this account. Mails from both email addresses would hit this person. So now let's move on to bulk user creation, or adding more than one user. Clicking on the focus button at the bottom right hand side will bring up the Add Multiple Users function. Selecting this, and we're presented with this screen. For the first use, and when I was learning Google Apps, I found it was easier to download the CSV with the manually created users into an application like Sheets or Microsoft Excel, and then I was able to manipulate that data as I wanted. Selecting pre-populate with existing users checkbox here and then clicking download will allow you to do so, and it will download a file with that user information, which we'll come to now. Here I have it in Excel. So as you can see, I've added a secondary email address for the employees, and I can add in a work address and also a cost center should I want to. And then also departments, depending on who the people are. IT, marketing, HR, IT, CEO, and bakery. And also all the other information you can have. Home addresses, mobile phone numbers, work numbers, all that information that you could glean out of CSV exports from other facilities such as Active Directory. So by saving this, it'll save as a CSV, comma delimited file. We can go back to our Google Apps console, attach a file, select the file, open, and then upload. Uploaded via the bulk upload facility. We can go back to a point we alluded to in a previous section, which was the creation of an alias. Now, as you remember, the user Robert Robertson was originally called Bob Robertson. Now, he's come back to us and he said, no, my Christian name is Robert and I want to be known as Robert. No problem, although it has been a couple of months since he joined the company and people are used to emailing him at bobrobertson@letthewookieelose.co.uk. So what we thought we would do is we would go in to this user account and we can scroll down and change some information for him. So here we go. Here's the account section. We can click on that. And you can see some of the information has already been populated from the bulk upload. And we can assign an alias to the Bob Robertson email address. Robert Robertson. And then click Save. That way, mails will hit both the Bob email account and the Robert email account. Okay, so now we've spoken about some of the other topics. We're coming on to the two final topics, suspension and deletion of users. So let's start and talk about suspension of a user. So one of our employees, Tim Lee, has been a very naughty boy and has put himself in a compromising position. So HR have decided that while an ongoing investigation is being carried out, Tim is going to be suspended. We'll select Tim. We'll click on the focus on the right hand side and then select Suspend User. Now, as the screen now says, Tim will not be able to log on to the letthewookieelose.co.uk network, will not be able to access the services like Gmail, Drive, Calendar, but his data will still remain intact and not deleted. And then receive invites sent to Gmail and the calendar will not be passed on to him, and will be able to reactivate this user at the end of the investigation. should he prove not to be as naughty as what we already think he has been. So we click suspend user. Done. You'll notice from our active users list, Tim has now been removed. If we change the focus to suspended users on the left hand side of the screen, there he is, Tim Lee, suspended by admin. Okay. So a week or so goes past, HR do their investigation and they think that Tim is okay to let back into the corporate world and to reinstate him. Now, normally you would think we'll just click over here and there'll be an option to say restore user. Not the case. You have to go into the individual user, as you can see, suspended, to the focus inside the individual user and then click restore. And that's how you do it. Let's go back to users. Tim is back in active users. Thank you very much. Job done. Suspended and then reinstated. So let's talk about deletion of users. So Tim, again, has had enough and he's decided he's going to leave the company. So not a problem. He works out his notice and it's come for the time for Tim to leave. And we're going to release the license for Google Apps and he's going to move on to past as new. So we then click the focus, we say delete user, and we get a slightly different box where we're encouraged to transfer the data to a new user. Okay, this is quite good of maintaining the sort of experience and all the data that person has collected over his working life and then put it over to a new person, more than likely a manager, a team leader, or in some cases the data could be transferred to a colleague who would be taking over Tim's role. So we're going to assign a new owner for this data. We're going to say me, Richard Owen. Okay, and then transfer the data and delete the account. Pow. So the account will be suspended. The data transfer will then happen from Tim to me, and then the account will be deleted. Now we have 30 days to change our mind, and we can restore Tim within that 30-day time period, much in the way that we did with the suspension of the users. So let's take a look. Let's go to recently deleted users. There's Tim. We can undelete that user, or we can download the user. We can undelete it and therefore restore him. Put him back into an organization. We could put him back into an organization, for example, that's got more security set on it, so that, you know, okay, well, you've come back, and just to make sure that you're not messing us about, Tim, we're going to put you in an organizational unit that is really sort of like cut down, or you might come back on a contractor basis. Okay, so if you go to active users and then click on contractors, after a period of time, Tim will appear here. Well, thanks for your attention. That concludes the brief overview of user management in Google Apps. Please keep an eye out for some of the other sections that I'll be doing in the coming weeks. Thanks again. Bye.